Hey everyone, it's Friday, very sunny day out today, and I'm super excited to have David Tipton from Oceans Learning Partnership here today.
Hey guys.
Also excited to have this cool new Rep the Rock hat, loving the color. Almost wish it was green for St. Patrick's Day, but the purple is pretty nice. So today we're going to be chatting about oceans, sciences, and all the above, so feel free to ask us your questions if you're following along. And I guess we will get started. So, if you want to tell us, I guess, first a little bit about you and what Oceans Learning Partnership does.
Yeah, for sure. I'll give you the 45-minute elevator speech that is Oceans Learning Partnership.
Must be a lot of floors. Are you going like top of Marina Bay Sands?
Yeah, for sure. You need a very tall building to get through that one. But essentially, Oceans Learning Partnership's been around for about 5 years and came about to address the gap in ocean science education in K-12. So what what we were finding out was that when I went through school, and maybe when Chelsea went through school as well, when we learned about the environment, it was never about the ocean outside of our backyards.
Yeah.
It was always about the savanna or about the boreal forest. It was never about what we were seeing right out our front doors, essentially. So it's a partnership that was brought together and includes the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada, Parks Canada, Memorial University, and a number of educational partners, including the NLESD. And the big part of that is it is a partnership. So we have field sites, including the Mon Ocean Science Center, Geo Center, Manuel's River, Terranova National Park certainly is a great partner site, Bombay Marine Station, and we have just started programming in the Costa Bays area and the Bay d'Espoir, Canagra Peninsula, and focus on experiential learning. So
I think that's a huge thing.
So hands-on, getting kids in boats, getting kids face-to-face and teachers face-to-face with scientists, and using lab-based and shore-based programming as well. But really like pulling them out of the classroom and getting their little hands wet.
Your little hands. That's so
I
funny.
told you it was 45 minutes.
I don't think we're at 45 yet. I know, that's so cool, because like growing up, you hear like so many kids are like, I want to be a marine biologist, but then they just don't really have any idea of like what exactly that entails. And I feel like a lot of them think that means that, they're training the whales to jump through hoops, but really there's so much more to it than that.
Yeah, so, trying to clarify, if you want to be that marine biologist, if you want to be the, I'm on the boat in the waves looking at the right whales, marine biologist, what's the path to that career? But also opening the door to all of the other oceans careers, whether they're biology based, whether they're technology based. We have some of the highest end companies in the world in oceans technology here in Newfoundland, doing some of the best research in the world, the best facilities in the world.
I think the Marine Institute, their boat, the simulator boat, I think that's like almost like one of a kind in the world. I think there's a lot of people from all over the world who come to use that. Yeah,
they have a great simulator system that they use both for education and also for industry professionals coming in to test things out at their facilities. Some great work being done at the Ocean Science Center as well, sort of on the biology side of things, and like local tech companies making like the best underwater cameras in the world, like out of Clarenville.
Wow,
right?
Yeah, I just saw one. There's a new, this isn't like completely more ocean related, but the Titanic expedition, they're like doing this thing, but it's like outrageously expensive. Like I think it's like $100,000 or something crazy. But
so there's a group coming in. I think they're based out of Seattle.
Okay.
Called Oceans Gate.
Yep.
And they're coming in and doing a 4K recording of the Titanic. And the guys Subsea Imaging, I believe, are sort of involved in that project as well. They're the guys with the cameras.
So we were finally going to figure out, whether Jack was actually on the Titanic.
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to find that big blue necklace. That would be wonderful.
What is it? The heart of the ocean's heart, or
you've watched Titanic in recent history. I
haven't watched it actually in like 10 years.
I'm going all the way back to like 98 or 97.
That's what I'm thinking of. I don't know. I watched it like when it came out. I mean, I had it on VHS, all 27 hours of it, but I can't remember. Sapphire of the Sea. Anyway, I went to the Titanic Museum in Belfast before. That was pretty
wonderful.
awesome.
There's also a great exhibit at the Geo Center
Yes, I
on
saw
the
that.
Titanic, and they have like a little ROV sort of setup where you can like go down, like explore around the Titanic and things like that.
I know, like, one of the things that surprised me so much is like when I was in Belfast, you could like see the shipyard, like the cranes are still there, like the ones that they used to build the Titanic, and they were huge. I know, like, it's like you just don't, I guess, register like the hugeness of it because like you see it on TV or on like movies or in pictures, and you know it's always like this like miniature thing. But when you like see the cranes, you're like, oh my goodness, like that's huge.
What was there like another highlight from the Belfast Titanic area? I only I'm getting inside information. My parents are going to like Ireland in like 3 weeks.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so I really loved Belfast, and I guess my other highlight, they had this like thing, and okay, there was like a lot of educational stuff. You could see what staterooms looked like, and you know, hear the stories of like the men who were building it and that kind of stuff. But they had this thing there, it was like a ride, and you got on it, and it like carried you through the shipyard, but like not like the legit shipyard, but like there was like, it had like little simulators, like men working in the steel and like the noises and that kind of stuff. So I think that was like one of my favorite things.
One of those things where you can sort of like close your eyes and picture yourself back like you know, almost 100 years ago, that sort of thing.
Exactly. And I think I guess just chat about Ireland, you know, St. Patrick's Day coming up, but I feel like a lot of people, they go to like, you know, Ireland, but they when it comes to Northern Ireland, especially like I told my grandmother and my mom, and they're like, oh, you're going to Northern Ireland? Because like recently, you know, there still was conflict, like I'd say like 20 years ago, so people still have like that really like nervous feeling. But I think that's really cool there. It's like kind of gritty, and like it's not overrun by tourists yet. I think there's like 4 hostels. So
yeah, it still has that sort of unique feel that hasn't become part of that the mainstream tourist market.
Yeah, exactly. And I just like, I really love it. It's one of my favorite experiences that I've actually had. So when people come on my show, we usually like, we have like a flow of like things that we're like going to talk about, and I always tell my guests sometimes things go off on tangents. So that is exactly what happens.
Yeah, I'd you know, conversational flow. I'd like to ask Chelsea as many questions as she'd like to ask me, I'm sure. But
so I guess this is like a funny thing about me. So I'm going to tell you a fun fact that you may not be aware of. So as a marketing person, most people don't think that I am actually a science student, biochem and biology. So for quite a while, my was my dream job was going to be a salmon scientist.
Okay, awesome.
I'm from Miramichi. The Miramichi River is like one of the most famous salmon fishing rivers in the world. Right now we're facing some pretty significant stock declines, and I'm like really fascinated by them, and I did some courses in ocean sciences just to learn more. I was interested in aquaculture, but then this is why I like the idea that you guys are doing experiential learning. I went to help count the brood stock, like the eggs.
Okay. Yeah.
And I realized being a salmon scientist was not quite as glamorous as I had pictured it to be. So I like love like the lab portion, and I think that it's so important to get like kids out in the field so that they understand exactly like what they're going to be doing as well.
Yep.
So have you seen have kids like come and then, you know, maybe they weren't interested in, you know, ocean sciences or like working in that field, and then they, you know, go out and they're like, oh my god, I love being on the boat, I love like.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we've found sort of both ends of that.
Yeah.
So you know, one from the interesting and engagement side. Frankly, we found that the hands-on experiential method in presenting science is great specifically for kids who might and students who might not do terribly well in a classroom environment. For sure. So it gets them outside, it gives them something to focus on and be hands-on. Quite often they find themselves as leaders in those situations when they're in the field. On the other side, we're also experienced, you know, trying to connect them to scientists and to that breadth of what real scientific activity is. So yes, there are highlights. You know, you're diving, and here's a beautiful wolffish next to you. But there are also the times where, you know, you're centrifuging, you know, algae in a lab for, you know, for 8 hours straight. And, you know, I don't think anybody says that's the highlight, but that is part of the role, for sure. One of the interesting pieces of feedback, that I've so part of what we do is research on science education as well. And, just anecdotally, we were looking at some of the research and surveys that we were getting back, and a lot of students were like, "Yes, exactly what you said. I love being out on the boat. This was the best field trip. I'm so excited." But everybody answered no.
Okay.
So when asked that question, everybody said no. I don't want to study ocean science as a career. And when we dove deeper, we found out that it was just the word study. Because they were picturing, I don't want to have my nose in a book. I want to be hands-on. I want to be outside. So yeah, it really makes it important how you deliver that programming to students, for sure.
Study, I know. And I think at MUN especially, I think that their program is I would say probably one of the best in Canada, just for I've experienced some of their courses, and I don't know if you know Joe Wroblewski, but he was made the course so fascinating. I think I did fisheries resource management. Yep. And most people, when they think of fisheries resource management, they're oh, numbers, and I hate math. I'm I don't want to discourage anyone from liking math, but that's just not my thing. I'm not good at it. But with Microsoft Excel and planning out seeing how different factors affect stock migration and that kind of stuff, I was oh wow, he delivered it in a way that was super fascinating. And I think that was really vital for me, because I'm the kind of person that I am a study person. I like reading the scientific journals more than I like hanging out in the lab. So I think that, like you said, it's all about how you present it.
It's all about how it's presented and how it's applied too. So that shared discovery and inquiry-based learning is a really important part. I think that's where the education system seems to be shifting a little bit nowadays. And I was quite literally reading a recent study this morning. Canada's not doing too bad, I think, but just around general science education, and people saying, that they don't trust scientists. And one of the directors from 3M was saying we need to present science in a different fashion. Yep. Parents have, always say science is important for my child, but it's not presented in the right way right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is something that is, because going into your first year of university, so I'm finishing up in April, I'm at the end of my Bachelor of Science, and I think one of the things that's really discouraging is you get in and that first year is introductory physics, introductory chemistry, introductory calculus. Yep. And I mean, you do, I guess, need to build those foundations, but if you're there and you're I just want to, study whale migration patterns, yep, that first year or year or two can be really discouraging, because you're not into what it is that you actually want to be studying.
And that's the key, is that a lot of those courses really are directly applicable to even whale migration studies. But it's really as an undergrad or a high school student, it's really difficult to make that link on your own. Yeah. So if you had a mentor or a scientist that you could connect with and talk about that, talk about how they got into the field, why they got into the field, that I think is a really key piece, because a lot of studies on whale migration, on the success of marine protected areas, all of that dives back into mapping technologies, into being able to create your own, alter your software so it's monitoring those things appropriately, and that all dials back into the physics and math side of things. If you want to design remote operated vehicles or autonomous vehicles to monitor icebergs, then that's, you need that science background, but it's not as always as direct link, because the courses themselves don't focus on the application of what you're learning.
Exactly. And it's funny too, because just like you mentioned, brought up the marine protected areas, and another thing too is last year I actually did some research as my term project into, I guess, the decline of the salmon in the Miramichi watershed system. And one of the things that we even saw just with monitoring the stock populations and how much how many there were and how many were being caught, is as soon as they declared that exclusive economic zone in Canada, the population and stock just shot up over the next few years. And I think that that's something really interesting to look at. And I know, being in Joe's class with the northern cod, him and his graduate student actually developed a formula to predict when they were returning. And a lot of people were hey, that's not true, like they're never coming back, blah blah blah. But now we're seeing like that increase, which I think is really awesome, and it really goes to show the importance of marine science.
Yep. Yeah, it's the importance of the marine science, but it's also the importance of that science communication side of things as well. So, Dr. Bob Gregory and his team with DFO have been monitoring juvenile cod habitat in Newman Sound in Terra Nova for, I think, over 20 years. And a big part of what they do is they almost always make sure they interact with the community, interact with the students, so you get that shared ownership and stewardship, and also understanding, and spark that interest in students. And that's how we keep more people employed in ocean sciences and interested in ocean sciences in Newfoundland in the long term.
And I know, like with where I'm from in Miramichi, one of the projects that they're working on right now, and it's just like, to me, I find it's just so amazing. So like one of the things that they're attributing the decline of the Atlantic salmon in our watershed system to is the fact that over the past few years, I think it was partially due to like damming off rivers, we have a extensive population of striped bass. So they were always in our river system, but not necessarily at the levels that they're at now. So they're thinking that they're eating smolts. So they are doing a pilot project to grow the smolts from, small size to like big size, and then releasing them, rather than just growing the eggs into like little baby fish and then letting them go into the ocean. So I think that's like pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. You can really do some good applied work, and like it just goes to show like the impact that we can have when we focus on solving a problem.
Yeah, exactly. So you said, when you sent me your bio, you worked in Toronto for quite a while before you wound up working or moving back to here. So tell us like a little bit about that move, what you were doing there, and the difference that you've seen since moving back here.
Yeah, for sure. So my partner moved to Toronto to pursue her PhD, and I followed her up to pursue my graduate work at Ryerson, and while I was there. So that was really the impetus of the move, was to stay up for a couple of years, come back here to the ocean. That's my science background and things like that. And then when I got up there, I was lucky enough to start working with Mountain Equipment Co-op.
I saw.
So that really helped, and I stayed with those guys for almost 10, I think over 10 years actually. And it really sparked my interest sort of in two areas. So one being, I was always into the outdoors, as you might, as a lot of Newfoundlanders are. It's it's sort of baked into us. And so it sparked my knowledge there, and on sort of like an adult education front, from getting people involved and outside, similar to the experiential learning that we do here with students in ocean science. And then on the other side, from a people management and culture management perspective, it was just such a great organization to work with. And we're here at Common Ground today, which is also a wonderful workplace culture. So if you're if you're working by yourself somewhere and you're self-employed, I'm going to put a plug in for Common Ground and say, come down here and hang out with us, because it's culture is important in your success.
And you want to know what? You say that, and one of the things that, like, working at Common Ground that I've seen is so, like I said, I have like a pretty diverse set of interests, but if I want to talk to someone about like event planning, I can like go find someone pretty easily, or marketing. Or if I'm like feeling scientific that day, then I can like chat with David, or I can chat with Susan Bachelor Consulting about oceans and sciences. And I think that it's just like there's such a diverse group of people that it makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's funny how many people you find like tied together. And I found that even being away for 10 years and sort of coming home, so many people are still like sort of in that same field. Every time I walk into a large meeting room, there's always a familiar face at the table. I'm always connecting with some. I got kicked out of the meeting room here the other day by Keith Mercer, who's like helping plan a Coastal Zone Canada conference, and he taught me in my undergraduate years. So it's always those links are important to sort of keep alive. And I think it's unique to Newfoundland to some extent. The amount of expertise we have here, and the amount of just deep ingrained relationships from a community perspective, both around the ocean and just in general. It's you can go to Toronto and get lost in the crowd, for sure. You can get lost in the crowd, and there are some good parts about that. But even amongst 1,000 people, eventually you stop. One of the key differences I noticed was eventually I stopped looking around for people I knew. Whereas, like in Newfoundland, when you go, you go to a cycling event or a concert or something, like you walk in the door and you're sort of doing like, is there anyone here I know? I wonder if anybody in this crowd of 5,000 people at the basketball game, I'm going to bump into somebody I know.
I know. And you want to know what I always find is I always think of that at the airport. Yep. And not only that, I think of it like, so a couple weeks ago, I had gone back to New Brunswick and I was flying back and I was in Halifax and I was like, I'm surprised that I haven't run into someone that I know yet, because I was like, pretty much every time I like make a trip home, I always like run into someone I know, like they're flying with me on the plane. So when I flew back in January, my friend Luke, who's in the band Rough Hands, I was just like, hey, like what are you doing? He's like, flying back to Newfoundland. And I'm like, me too. Yep. And then I was just sitting there and I was having this experience where I was like, I haven't run into anyone I know. Like this is unusual. Like this hasn't happened to me since like my first year of university here. And then I actually ran into Gabby Payton, who was like one of our previous podcast guests. Just like turned around and I'd actually texted her like 5 minutes before that. And I turned around and her and her boyfriend were just sitting there, like, or her husband, were just like sitting there waiting to fly back here. So I think that it's really like a unique thing.
It is. It's a terribly unique thing, and it's also the island. What I call the island mentality is very unique as well. Yeah. That tight. It creates a tight knit sense that you don't get other places.
And it's funny. I messaged a couple of people today, and I was just like, hey, I'm going to do a podcast with David Tipton today. We're going to be chatting about the ocean sciences and that kind of stuff. And they were like, oh my God, we know him. Like, can't wait to tune in. So I guess you're pretty well recognized in this scientific community.
Well, very, very lucky to be part of an organization that is partnership based. For sure. So my days are largely connecting with other people. Yeah. My morning this morning I was connecting with a classroom in Hermitage down on the Canagra Peninsula. So now everybody in that class hopefully will take part in a or apply for a summer internship we're offering, and then that will continue to spark their interest in ocean careers as well.
And I know what's really cool too is I guess to the Atlantic province specifically, they just announced I don't know how much funding it was for the Ocean Supercluster. So I'm super excited to see how these companies that you're talking about, the best underwater camera or Ocean Slurring Partnership, or all of these ocean-based companies, how they're going to develop over the next few years.
I'm really glad you brought that up, actually, because it's a really important point for Newfoundland.
Yeah.
The fact that the Atlantic. So for those of you who don't know, about $950 million has been earmarked for 5 industry superclusters across the country. The Atlantic provinces all came together on an oceans based supercluster around oceans technology, and so that money will come out over 5-year cycle. Right now, industry is pulling together a board to figure out how they're going to distribute that money, or invest that money, really. But really, what it's done is it's brought a significant sense of optimism to the ocean technology sector, and that includes future careers for students in ocean technology. It opens the door for entrepreneurs in ocean technology. It opens the door to additional funding in ocean technology. I was having this conversation with Matt Steinbeck. So we had a meeting on an app we're developing down at Atlantic Place, and we were sort of walked him back to his house like I should, and we were having this exact discussion, and it's part of bringing the really unique part here is that everybody is working together from all of the different Atlantic provinces on this same initiative. And if we're going to position ourselves as a strong technology hub or a strong ocean technology or ocean science hub, we really have to get in the headspace of championing each other.
Yes.
So championing what's happening, at the Ocean Frontier Institute in Halifax.
Yep.
And what's happening, at MUN, from an innovation standpoint, from what's happening at the Ocean Science Center, the different tech companies and oceans tech companies that are members of Oceans Advance. We really need to be championing each other because large funders and large industry contributors, nationally and internationally, really need to, when they look at Newfoundland, they need to see that the staffing is there, the knowledge base is there, that we're not a one-of organization, or we're not a one-of industry representative, but we're part of a larger network that has the skill set, that has the facilities and the capacity to be able to grow, and is something they should invest in.
And saying that, that's like one of my huge, I guess, like life mottos is, community / collaboration over competition. And I think that, so I guess like a thing is I was on the Center for Entrepreneurship, and they were like, no one wants to steal your idea. Like, you give this idea out, but, if I said, I'm going to teach kids how to, go out and pick, bivalves up off the shore, that might sound similar on paper to like what Oceans Learning Partnership is doing, encouraging kids to get out onto the ocean. But in execution, they turn out to be like totally different ideas. And I think that, it's starting to get better, but there's always been like this secrecy and reluctance in entrepreneurship and, to share like what you're feeling, what's going on. And I really like that, as a community, the ocean sciences community and technology and all that have been championing each other. I think that's like a good example to set for, the rest of the community.
And it's, it's important to, as an organization or personally to, figure out what your personal goals are as well. Like if your goals are ocean science education, for experiential ocean science education for K to 12, as part of the goal of Ocean Learning Partnership, then certainly we're going to champion anybody who's helping make that happen. We're going to want to work together with anybody who's helping make that happen and helping push those goals forward. And sometimes it's a slow process because you need to build partnerships and you need to make sure that all of your goals are aligned, for sure, and that strategically it makes sense for everybody. But those conversations I find are always great. It's not always the right time for everybody, but that certainly doesn't mean that the door closes as long as we continue to work together, or both work down that same path. Then our paths will cross eventually. That's the way I sort of look at it.
So speaking of paths, one of the other things that I really love about David is he has an amazing Instagram account, East Coast Hikes, where he shares his hiking experiences along the coast of Newfoundland. So what's your favorite trail to enjoy?
I have a place in my heart for the Spout Hike.
Okay, I've always wanted to do it, but I don't know. I've heard bad things. Well, good things, but you'll die.
Yes, I've had both of those experiences. So there's a place in my heart there that was, I think the first week, myself and my partner Dana have been together for, over 15 years. Yeah. Well, almost 15 years, one of those two. And one of the very first weeks we were together, we went on a hike on that trail, and she fell and broke her nose, and it just was just the bloodiest mess that you can imagine, and just handled it like a champ, and we've been sort of madly in love ever since. So that trail will always hold a piece in my heart. But on the other side of that, I've also taken people, and it's been foggy and you can't see 10 feet outside, but that's a great trail. The Spurwink Trail is absolutely phenomenal. Cape Royal is a really great trail. Again, a tough trail.
Okay.
Last time we were out on that trail, we got up on a cliff and were able to see two humpbacks feeding on capelin for, I would say, a full hour. And it's, I've spent a lot of time around the ocean, but this was the first time that I was able to see down. So you could see their full silhouettes. You could see their white fins, and they were sort of interacting. They'd come and sweep the beach, and they come back out, and you could watch them absolutely perfectly. If you're looking for like an intro trail on the East Coast Trail, I find the Cape Spear Trail is wonderful, or Bay Bulls back and forth in and out to the lighthouse is wonderful as well.
I'll keep those intro ones in mind.
And you never know what you might find. I've seen everything from humpbacks to bald eagles to forest fires, like literally like coming across and an area is completely charred and like still hot.
Oh my goodness.
From a lightning strike, I think the day before. And we've seen like enormous ocean sunfish. So if you don't know ocean sunfish, they're sort of like, they look like the head of a fish sort of sideways in the water. Sort of just floating offshore. Not something that you always see here, certainly, but you never know what you're going to see. Every trail is different.
So as we finish off every podcast, we get you to draw a couple questions. So they're pretty basic, no specialized knowledge required. Yep. So if you want to pick a couple from the jar of awesome.
Okay, I'm going to get down to the bottom and get this green one for St. Paddy's Day.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
What is the best piece of advice you have ever gotten?
Ooh, okay. The best piece of advice I've ever gotten. That's a tough one.
Some of them are like really flimsy and easy, and some of them are getting a little deep.
Some of them are definitely pretty deep. I don't know if I've had a best piece of singular advice.
I guess a great piece or a good
But
piece.
a good piece that's I always try to sort of take away is that my manager at MEC sort of once told me was to make sure that like you're always putting yourself in someone else. So you don't know what's happening with people day to day. Some people are very happy when they sort of come across to you, but you know what, if somebody's having a bad day, that's okay. That's not on you. Not everybody's always going to have a good day. All you can do is try to make their day better.
Exactly. That's really good advice.
So if you're getting frustrated with an interaction you're having with somebody, just step back for a second, take a breath, and go, okay, is there anything I can do to make their day better? Because they're not having a great one right now. And that I think ultimately sort of led to a lot of success in my retail career and also in my education career as well.
I think that's a really great piece. So you can pick out a second one there. Oh, sorry.
No.
Okay, so this one is from Kelsey Lee Hubley, who is on Instagram.
Hi, Kelsey.
What motivates you when you're feeling discouraged?
I'm almost going to pull it back to that. I was going to pull back the same thing, but that's not true. What motivates me when I'm feeling discouraged is surrounding myself with inspirational people. And I'm not a natural extrovert, for sure. I get my energy from like when I'm outside all day long with people. I have to sort of refocus and go I need some downtime. Yeah. But really surrounding yourself with people who inspire you is what has always motivated me. I've been extremely lucky in that category. Throughout my life, both personally and at work, to really be around people who put themselves out there, take the time to help others, and are continue to be resilient. So people who are resilient and move through difficult situations, make the best out of it. Because when you see other people being able to do that, it really helps focus me personally. Yeah.
I am totally agreeing with that advice. Your tribe equals your vibe.
Yep.
So thanks everyone for tuning in. And next week we're gonna have Chrissy Rossiter from Peachy. And if you're listening on YouTube or on an iTunes store, be sure to hit subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.